Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. On behalf of the National Bank of Fujairah and Etisalat, I am pleased to welcome all of you. I am Gavin Quass, and I will be hosting today's webinar. As we know, businesses, irrespective of their industries, have suffered a severe setback due to COVID-19 crisis across the globe. While businesses are regaining their strengths to redirect their growth curve towards progress, there are still many challenges to overcome, as well as many opportunities to grab. Today, we will explore and highlight about such challenges, risk factors, and how an effective business plan can go a long way in taking businesses to the new heights with structured digital marketing strategies. Partnering with Etisalat, this webinar is part of a knowledge sharing effort by the National Bank of Fujairah, where our aim is to increase awareness of common trends, challenges, and opportunities to help SMEs and business owners with resources not only to operate, but grow and develop even further in today's transforming environment. Our efforts and services are continuously recognized by a number of industry accolades, including the recent titles of the Best SME Bank and Most Innovative Emerging Technology Implementation by MEA Finance Awards. Today, we will also explore more about Etisalat Hello Business Hub and Etisalat Digital Academy, where the aim is to support and empower SMEs in the UAE. I will also take advantage of today's session and will remind you to register to mbfconnect.ae, a platform designed to empower SMEs where you connect other like-minded business owners and get updates on the industry trends and market insights. Together with me, I have on the panel today, Essa Mahmood, Senior Vice President SMB at Etisalat, Karen Drain, Founder and Managing Director at Curveball Events, Marie-Christine, Founder and Managing Partner at Fruitful Day, Rehan Ali, Head of Business Banking at the National Bank of Fujairah, and David Jeggerson, Head of Customer Experience and Platform Development at MBF. If I can ask the speakers to turn on their videos, thank you. We will also have a few live polls and request you all to please participate and share with us your opinions and views. You'll see these on your screen. Please feel free to add your answers. Towards the end of the webinar, we will also have a Q&A session. So in case any questions come to mind during the session, please share them through the Q&A tab, and we will address them at the end of the session as much as possible. So in summary, the four areas that we're covering today is how to assess potential risks and threats to your business in 2021 and beyond, digital marketing strategies to stand out, I guess, from the clutter. Business planning and projection is key, but how has this transformed recently with the increase in digitalization and post-COVID trends? And finally, are SMEs adapting themselves to the fast-paced environment, lessons learned from the recent trends in specific industries? If we can have our first speaker come join us. Our first gentleman joining us is Rehan Ali from the MBF, looks after business banking. Rehan, thank you very much for joining us. Rehan, obviously in the introduction there, I talked about business planning. I guess from your perspective, what does business planning mean to you, and why, I guess, is it important for our listeners?
Thank you, Gavin. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this webinar. First of all, business planning is something which is very important for every business which needs to survive and thrive, including the bank itself. In these unprecedented times, planning has become much more critical, and more importantly, what it should cover: cash flows. If you're able to achieve the top line, are you able to realize the receivables? Cash flow management planning, extremely important. Then you have the succession planning of the business, the corporate and the governance, very, very critical. What about your supply chain planning? Very important. You'll be able to sell only if you're able to get your supplies. And one thing which has becoming very, very important, although it was there as well before, but it has become much more critical now, is the BCP. What is BCP? Business Continuity Plan. We have seen from our experiences over the last 1.5 to 2 years, certain offices had to close down due to a COVID case, or the floors has to be closed down. Is your business in a position to work from an alternate place? How many people will you require? Do you have that infrastructure in place? Do you have that IT infrastructure in place, like laptops, like iPad? Do you have that stuff? How much minimum people you will be required to do the job in such a situation? So BCP planning, very, very critical, together with other planning aspect for the continuity of the business and for the thrive of the business. If you have a plan in place, you will be prepared. And now the way situation is, you might have to have a plan B, and if possible, plan C. If something comes up unprecedented, how you're going to address the situation to make sure the business can.
Yeah, right. And I think that echoes to a lot of the other speakers in probably some of the questions we'll ask later on. And I think that brings us to that next point. You sort of mentioned there business planning, obviously continuation planning. How often do you think businesses should, I guess, reassess their plan? You've talked there plan A, plan B, plan C. Is this a weekly occurrence, monthly, daily? What's the kind of consensus?
Look, normal frequency in normal set of circumstances, planning is done once a year when you do the annual budgeting planning, and some company touch base on it every 6 months, how to see are things going as per plan. But given the current situation we are in, given the unprecedented times of COVID, where things are changing so rapidly, international markets open, close, it's good to have a periodic review just to see the plans which you have made. Are they going on continuing? Do you want to upgrade something? Do you want to change something? So I think a monthly quick overview is critical. Most importantly, when you do this, you need to have your respective stakeholders on board. Most importantly, your critical staff. You need to share with them their feedback, what's there, because they will be your partner in implementing this plan for the organization.
Great. And what is, as we look at the potential risks for 2021 and beyond, have you seen or do you foresee any different potential risks or threats to a business that might come up that we've either not thought about or are only just starting to happen now?
See, every business will have the risk. It will have challenges. Just to name a few, which will always be there, the market challenges, which is there. The decrease in the collateral value, which you have purchased. We have seen property real markets goes up and down. We have seen recently over the last 6 months to 1 year, the freight have tripled what it used to be. Somewhere you might get the supply, somewhere you might not get the supply. But Kevin, let me tell you one thing. Every risk, every challenge come up with certain opportunities as well. I'll give you an example that some of our retail customers around 1.5 years back, when COVID was at its peak and the lockdown started, they had a lot of problems. But what they realized, there is something called the digital platform, which is there. They tied up, like the eateries tied up with Zomato and other names. Some developed their own online portal, and some tied with Namshi and others. And now they are realizing that this is now has created a new revenue stream for them. Similarly, there were some companies who were into trading when the normal trading line of business, the work has slowed down. They realized there was an appetite for this marks, this protection equipment and PEPs. They traded in that for the time being, which enabled them to surpass the downturn. So every challenge comes up with certain opportunities as well. Maybe for some businesses, it might be more. For some, it is less. But one has to see a combination of both to make the best out of it.
Look, I think that's a very valid point, and actually is in the conclusions. And I'm sure a couple of our speakers will re-emphasize some of that sort of, I guess, cross collaboration, I guess we'll call it, across different platforms or different organizations to generate those extra revenue streams. What are some of the major steps taken by, I guess, the bank to overcome the impact of COVID-19? And are there any sort of specific steps or initiatives, that made the major positive impact?
Gavin, I would like to break this question into two. One is more client focused. Yes, NBF did a lot of things to support the client, which included extension or deferral of liabilities. We knew this was a tough time where cash flows of the companies were impacted. So we give them deferral. Okay, interest payments were also delayed. In such situation, when the interests were due, client came and informed that they were finding it difficult to pay. So even that was restructured. And then we had certain businesses, in addition to deferral, they needed the money to jumpstart the businesses when the situation was started to improve. We did that. We also realized that some businesses had the impact more of COVID, so they need support. They're still on support kind of thing, because our effort is to keep this company survive this downturn and come back to the feet again. So we have help. And NBF had a very sustained approach towards SME financing. While some banks did started the consolidation when the downturn happened, but NBF remained committed. Okay, and even during these times, NBF was among the few banks which were continued to lending to new names. Of course, it was done on a careful note kind of thing, but we never shut the doors to new lending, and SMEs were benefiting from this. So this is side of the client. NBF also did a lot for its staff, because that the safety of the staff was paramount. We worked out on a plan as to see how many staff can work from home without interrupting the customer service. There was some critical staff which were pointed out, which had to come to the branches despite all this, and they came to the branches as well. Later on, very recently, as you're aware, bank took care, and there was a champion awards given to these people who continue to come to the bank in the peak of COVID, and they were really like our internal heroes. And this support to the customer still continues, because markets are not returned to the normal as yet, but our effort is to support the customer and survive this downturn.
So Rehan, I think some very, very valid points. Thank you very much for that. I'll introduce our next speaker. So Rehan, if you can go on mute, that would be great. Thank you very much. Our next speaker, if I can bring her on, is Karen Drain. Karen, do you just want to take a minute just to explain about maybe curveball events?
Hi, Gavin. Thanks for having me.
No problems.
I first want to start off with amazing points by Rehan. I'm going to echo a lot of what he said, especially about business continuity. My name is Karen Drain. I run a company called Curveball Events. We do events, we do talent management as well. So we represent some figures in the region, namely Chris Fade, Pretty Malik, and Brent Black. Obviously, with the pandemic, we've been thrown in the hot water because we're part of an industry that is definitely been affected in one of the worst ways with social distancing and so on. So we've had a really interesting ride. I'm more than 7 years into this industry. So this year has been, well, 2020 and this year has been really interesting so far, so to say.
Great. And yes, I think, you know, obviously we're going to love to hear about your shift in what you've had to do in business model. So it'll be interesting what you have to say. I think let's start with the first question. How have you shared your experience with other business community members, network groups, or mentors? Because for SMEs, I think that's a very valid requirement that they need, because not many people have been through what a lot of business owners have been through in the last 18 months.
Yeah, I would say it was actually vital. For me, I felt immense need to talk to other people that were in the same situation, because as a business owner, it's more about responsibility. Making money is all fine and well, but when you work with people, you get to know their families, and it's about responsibility in the end. And there was so many changes here, again, like Rehan said, what about cash flow? This was just before the summer. A lot of the businesses here are seasonal, so we have a bit slower in the summer, but now we lost the period before that where we usually make the money for this. How do you transition over? Do you keep the office? Do you go all digital? How do you set up teams at home so that they are comfortable? What kind of support do they need? Because not everybody is a self-starter. And again, how many people do you need now? Do you keep your A players in the team? Do you keep all of them? I've seen people that kept their entire teams on for months and thinking that this would go away. I've seen people that let go of, unfortunately let go of most of their teams prematurely, but then they could still continue working earlier than others. So having a support system, like a friend of mine set up a group with just event people in it. So it was a WhatsApp group for just support, for sharing updates, and it's been instrumental. you know, having 150 people sending quick updates or how they've adapted or something that has happened, you know, especially as well, trying to come back to business. And I'm talking for any industry, not just mine. You know, when you're back on business and then something quickly happens, like, okay, actually the regulations are different now. How do you adapt to that, you know, and how does your team adapt to it?
Look, I think you're spot on, and I think for anybody, I think that almost getting consensus from other like-minded business, I think has been critical. Digital marketing, obviously, you know, has grown considerably, but at the same time, is it saturated? And I guess the question there is, how are users being able to, you know, catch the eye of somebody for a split second because it is quite saturated? And is there any particular strategies that have worked versus those that haven't?
Sure. So, I mean, we work with a range of clients that book our talent. And when it comes to digital marketing, there was a huge upswing. You know, influencers was popular before, but now, I mean, if you look at Dubai in itself, it was huge impact on the events, right? So a lot of the activations and marketing efforts have been outdoor advertising or activations and events. So now what ended up happening is that the companies were experimenting with virtual events, and then people that hadn't considered content creation and influencers, for instance, they all of a sudden found themselves swimming in that pond. And of course, the people that were already onto that have gone even deeper. What I found is that clients across the board are focusing a lot more on adding value. They're looking at the consumers, at the people that are watching the content. It's less showing off or bragging about what you do, and more about what can they do for the client. Where's the added value? Really careful with the tone of the content, making sure that it's in line with their branding, less risk-taking, I would say. And just quality content. I think there has become like a deeper understanding as well of the digital marketing segment. I think clients are becoming a lot more savvy. I think agencies are obviously popping up, but there's a lot of startups. There's a lot of ambitious people that through the pandemic realized, hey, you know what? They might have let me go, but I'll set up my own. And I've seen a lot of people also go out on their own through this pandemic, where they were maybe working with a big agency, and to have the combination of now the digital market literally exploding and combining that with the hunger of a new entrepreneur has been really exciting to see as well.
What I guess, you know, you mentioned your business is obviously, you know, gone through a considerable amount.
Yes, that's
what was the big what was the biggest I guess risk that you faced, and how did you overcome that? I think it'll be interesting to know for our listeners.
Sure. So definitely, I would say cash flow was obviously one of the big ones, especially since our industry is based on good client relations and vendor relations. So I'm always the middleman, right? Which means I need to give very preferential treatment to the clients and be flexible on payment terms. And of course, our clients have also taken a huge hit. You know, we work with really big ones. So it's not easy for them to go through this as well. And then on the other side, I have vendors that require money from me. So if I extend the payment terms with clients, it puts me in a, you know, in a tricky situation with vendors and cash flow. You know, but it also, for us, it gave us an opportunity that we could negotiate better rates with vendors. We were really lucky to be able to continue, not with events, but with other services for our clients, even throughout the lockdown and everything. So we've been fairly lucky with that, but we've been extremely careful with cash flow, really planning, trying to predict, you know, what type of income will we be having in the coming months. My team has been fantastically supportive, you know, and really knuckled down and adapted to the situation. So
I was going to say, I think you mentioned there, and Rehan mentioned it, you know, cash flow, but that sort of business planning and business planning on a, you know, daily, weekly basis. COVID has highlighted the need to be agile in the business and your business approach. Is there any sort of strategy that you've taken with relation to trying to adopt your business into that sort of agile manner compared to maybe where you were before?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was looking at a very traditional view on business and, you know, the models that I've been following as well, my mentors. But I think with the pandemic, what's happened now is that we've had to open our eyes and see some different perspective. I definitely have rethought what type of people I need in my organization, what skills they need. I feel like a hybrid model for workplace is something that I'm actually willing to incorporate. I think it's beneficial. I now have team members that are working from their home countries, which I would have never thought of before. But with the digital possibilities now, it's different, you know, and I think it's forced people to open their eyes and try and fail, try again and fail better kind of thing. So definitely huge learning curves there. I mean, once you get over the bruised ego, I think there's really good takeaways from these last 18 months.
Ego or adaptation, I think both ways probably makes it happen. Well, look, Karen, thank you very much for those thoughts.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it. I'll get you to come back towards the end for the Q&A. If I can ask you to obviously go on mute. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Essam Mahmood, who is Senior Vice President SMB at Etisalat. Essam, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good morning.
Thank you.
It's a good afternoon.
No worries. So Essam, obviously with MBF, we've been developing this partnership, and you know, that's one of the pieces from a digital aspect that we are obviously trying to, you know, improve on. I guess a question I have for you, how would you see Etisalat contributing to the transforming trends and changes in the consumer requirements, especially within the SMEs?
Before I start, Gavin, I mean, just give me a chance, first of all, to thank you.
Sure, yes, my apologies, yes.
Thank you for inviting us to be part of this webinar. And also it's our pleasure in Etisalat being a strategic partner with the National Bank of Fujairah to support the growth and also the SMBs and transform the business digitally. For me, before I answer the question, let me introduce myself as being the Senior Vice President of SMBs in Etisalat. I've been here for the last 23 years of experience ranging of different business functions within Etisalat. However, back in 2007, when the inceptions of SMB division started, and also the growth of SMBs within this the country and the focus of the government to focus on the SMBs, we as Etisalat has completely reshaped and also transformed the SMB go-to-marketing approach. And we have also turned around the SMB culture to consolidate high-performing teams. And here we have started leading the team since 2007. Back to your questions regarding the...
Thank you.
Welcome, most welcome, Gavin. Back to your question regarding how Etisalat has contributing and transforming the trends on the customer and consumer and business. Let me just tell you, Gavin, Etisalat has maintained a diverse and also effective business models, offering added value to our customer base to meet their expectation and also exceed by launching different innovative offers and services. We have also tailored our solutions, especially to the business segments, mainly to deliver the best possible value, competitive offerings, and also empowering and providing them with the variety of services and product solutions. Today, I can proudly say that today we are able to play a greater role on the digital lives of consumers and also the enterprise, with the backbone of our robust, one of the most advanced and fastest, widest network in the regions. Back to talking about the SMEs, it's worth notice that today, the SMEs, they are making about 98% of the businesses in UAE. And they're also representing more than 60% of the country GDPs. Therefore, they are very important segments within Etisalat's businesses. The startup SMEs are mainly looking and focusing on achieving long-term businesses objectives with the minimal hassles on the operation front. They look for a one-stop shop solutions where they can deal with one single player, reducing their hassles of dealing with the multiple partners.
Yes.
That's why we in Etisalat start to mainly focusing on delivering innovative solutions to support the SMEs needs for many years now. We have also enabled them with the digital transformations by offering innovative solutions, majorly from the clouds. Why? Because we need to remove the needs for on-premise development and installation and customize their needs and size. And also at the end, ultimately, we are focusing on including bundles offer that can deliver more value to the business. I can give an examples of our latest product, which is we call the Business Edge. For us, it's an examples of how we are focusing on the helping the SMEs to run their businesses with no upfront capital investments, providing them with the infrastructures and business tools to compete and also deliver better services for their clients. For us, this is a comprehensive platform that built on innovations, customizations, and also value to meet their different businesses during the business life cycles. Last but not least, we have also enabled our SMBs to interact digitally using our B2B, using our mobile app, where all the SMEs now can apply for services, manage their subscriptions, pay, download their base, all online with the eco-friendly approach.
I was going to say, so lots of digital innovation there, and obviously, you know, the last bit's there, catering towards, I guess, mobile usage, which, as we all know, a lot of things are moving that way. And I know I spoke to Karen earlier, and I'm pretty sure she's moved over to some of the Etisalat offerings. So we were having a good discussion about that. Sam, when you look at some of the other aspects that you've developed, such as the Hello Hub, the Digital Academy, you know, what are some of the benefits from these for some of our listeners?
Sure. We in Eتصالات are mainly driven by our service mentor for SMBs, which is mainly your business growth with us. Our Hello Business program is part of a commitment to help and develop the candidates SMBs sector by providing necessary business solutions that enable them to growth, because they are also contributing to the national economy very, very high, as we said. Yes. What we want as Eتصالات is how we could support both the government and also the business by being a contributing factor to their joint success. We are committed on making the transactions and to the UAE very smooth, productive, and also profitable. So that's why we have launched our Hello Business onboarding program, which is exclusively from Eتصالات. Whether you are a new businesses or planning to open a single branch or national franchisee, Eتصالات can offer you a faster and also cost-effective way to meet all your business and communication needs. Eتصالات, the Hello Business Hub, it's the regions, I would call the region's first onboarding program that enabling SMBs to set up in the UAE. It's a set of comprehensive initiatives by Eتصالات that can ease also the setup and growth challenges that SMB are currently facing, and also the startups. In fact, it's a design to help them to get with all their businesses license register. For example, the license registrations, opening bank account, taxation, activities. Yeah. I mean, you know, for every single business customers, you need to also have some transaction with the government, whether a visa for your employee or UAE ID. We're also combined with our Eتصالات latest telecom and ICT product or services. We are offering a simple value for money, convenient and unique approach to help the SMB's business to compete in the global market. In fact, with our Hello Business programs, one can look forward for a greater flexibility, zero upfront, because all our services are on OPEX. Because we know that the CapEx also cash flow is very, very important and affect the business. We have also improved our operational also efficiency and more.
Sorry.
If you allow me, because you have also mentioned regarding the Digital Academy, and on the other hand, for us, the Digital Academy, we were able to, and the whole idea behind it was that how we could support smaller businesses with a host of information videos, webinars, and also talk shows that can take their businesses to the next level. The Academy, in fact, our goal was how we can compromise of informative platform that could design a collaborative hub for the expert knowledge and also the share of experience to our SMEs.
No, I was going to say, sorry for interrupting, the aspect there you mentioned about cost effective, obviously it being sort of cloud-based, innovative. I think whenever you're looking at a lot of the startups now, but even in businesses that are in growth, cost is obviously, is a very important aspect. The fact that it's fast, it's convenient, and the fact that you don't have to go somewhere to physically visit it for it to be set up, I think is even more advantageous for the startups. Just the last question there before I go to our next speaker. COVID has set many new trends as well as challenges for individuals and businesses. How do you see the way forward from here for these young businesses in light of the UAE's vision of empowering and growing the SME sector? Is there anything specific or valid points?
Yeah, that's a good point to raise. We all know and we have all witnessed how the pandemic has accelerated the digital transformations globally, with mainly shifting and investment priorities. So most of the SMBs now are shifting their priorities and challenges in online behavior. Business and also people globally think differently about how they work and how they run their lives. We have also witnessed that the percentage of our customers interacting digitally has been dramatically accelerated and also increased. Moreover, the communication and connectivity are gaining more significance and are also demanding more than ever during the pandemics. Obviously, for us as a telcos, we play a critical role here in how we could close the gap by becoming an engine of resilience and also innovative. Moving ahead, the network monetizations and digital transformation also play a very, very key role on how we can bring all this change to our society. In my view, SMEs now should be aware that the digital capabilities is not only limited to customer experience, but it should also be extended to automation and using the AI capabilities internally to strengthen all your business functions. SMEs, in fact, they have and they need to move from thinking of digital first to digital throughout. So it's not limited to specific things. You need to think differently. You need to think throughout all your transactions, all your activities by driving the AI and automations. And also you need, as SMEs, need to refresh their digital customer experience by implementing more of intelligence, more of machine learning, more of AI in customer interaction, and also evolve their capabilities to support their value propositions. And I'll give an example as for us in الاتصالات. We're already working on transforming all our elements integral into one or ecosystems. We are enabling the society to digitally connect, work, and also learn from home. And we have seen all the schools for the last 2 years all working, mainly schools and universities from homes, running their operations, running their classes, running their exams. We are also building a workforce that's of highly skilled and also motivated digital talents who can work efficiently and seamlessly. Having said that, our focus will continue to provide the SMB customers with a reliable network, innovative products, and also experience while identifying their new pocket of growth. Last but not least, we all know, like today's event it's remotely. We also remote working infrastructures like the online services, technology skills, and cybersecurity are now becoming very, very priority for the government, corporate, and also the SMEs. This is accelerating the digital transformations, in fact, for the SMEs and also the societies with telecom, and especially lately with having 5G as playing the major role on the network.
So thank you, and I think that brings me to a couple of points before I introduce our next speaker. You sort of mentioned there about obviously some of the other added elements, obviously that Etisalat is providing. I think the two standout points, and it goes back to maybe Karen and Rehan, which is a lot of cross collaboration. I think is really critical, and that helps to grow businesses even more. And the other aspect that you mentioned there is around digital innovation. One of the questions that we asked at the start in the polls was, what do you think is your greatest risk to your business that is facing today? And as you can imagine, financial risk, which obviously Karen and Rehan mentioned, was top, followed by growth risk. Digital innovation was third. And then security and IT risk. Now, I think that security and IT will continue to grow, same as it will for digital innovation. When we look to actually marketing spend, how many people are actually, or how much are they spending on their marketing spend in a digital application? It was interesting to find that actually, quite a lot of people, some over 30%, had less than 10%. Now, maybe that's, that they've not evolved their business. Maybe COVID is going to have to highlight that they do need to evolve that to an element. Maybe it's, to Karen's point, that maybe they're not finding that it gives them the ROI because it's not focused within a certain area that's of quality for them. And then the last piece, just before I introduce our next speaker, is what is the biggest challenge that SMEs are facing? It was a complete range between finding the right business partners to accelerate their growth, obviously obtaining funding, keeping up with digital innovation and keeping a workforce, I guess, sort of happy. So all hands on deck is how I would summarize those last points. SM, thank you very much for your commentary there. We'll come back to you for the questions shortly, but if you can go on mute, that would be fantastic. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. If I can ask Marie-Christine from Fruitful Day. Marie, and apologies for SM. Marie, do you want to just take a minute to introduce yourself, and then I'll sort of run through a few questions?
Thank you so much for having me today, Gavin, and the rest of the team. So my name is Marie-Christine, MC for short, and I started a company called Fruitful Day 6 years ago. Since day one, we've never actually had a physical presence. We've only ever sold online. But for sure, the pandemic changed things up for us, and there's been a lot of learnings in that.
Thank you very much. So, you talked about that, the changes. One of the questions, and we'll jump straight in, business planning and projection, obviously, we know is key. How has, I guess, COVID sort of changed your sort of aspect, and particularly enhancing on digitalization?
Yeah, so I think many people on the call have already touched on how cash flow has been such an important element. Planning cash flow has been such an important element of getting through the pandemic, and it was no different for Fruitful Day. I think sort of pre-pandemic, we were happy looking at financials at the end of the month and, learning from that and moving ahead. Like post-pandemic, we're looking at our cash flow almost every single day. We have a weekly report that first thing Sunday morning, that's what we're looking at. So I feel like we're just having to be a lot more on top of things. And in terms of it being digital, my primary accountant sits in the Philippines. The fractional CFO I work with sits in Italy. So the team is remote, and we're doing everything online. And it doesn't require us physically being in the same place to drive the business forward. So certainly moving into a different kind of world.
Yeah, and I think, again, Karen touched on that. I think the whole remote working, but in different parts of the world versus actually localized is obviously, it's sort of grown dramatically. How have you balanced the risks, versus trying to grow the company? Because I can imagine that's been a major challenge as well.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is I've always been really straightforward with my employees. I think at the beginning of COVID, I had to be honest. I too was scared, right? Try to put on a brave face for the employees, but we're all going through the same thing. So one of the first things I said to them is we've got to protect the company. We have to almost look at the company as a person, because when we protect the company, we protect the employees. We very much care about our employees, but in order to be able to do that, we need to get this business through the crisis, right? And we all came together as a team and understood that there were a lot of risks. And I think that is what helped us, that everybody was on board with trying to get through the pandemic in the best way possible. We ended up raising money going into the pandemic. We raised just shy of $1 million, which was incredible to do in a time that people were in lockdown. But I think the natural thing is to kind of hide away. But by staying in touch with potential investors, with our clients, and being out there in a time where it would have been easier to just be silent really helped us to show people that we were trying to figure it out. We were being proactive. We were using the resources we had to grow in a different direction than we had originally planned.
Look, yeah, and I think you're spot on. I think for the businesses maybe that have done well is that open communication with, stakeholders, employees, almost acting as a full-on team, even though, it's the business owner that might be at the face of it. That brings me to that next question. Have you had the skill set internally to deal with these risks, or similar to Karen's point, have you had to sometimes go externally to get that sort of advice or support?
I mean, I think we've all learned a lot internally, right? So the team is much stronger today than it was in March 2020. But that being said, you heard me mention earlier that we use a fractional CFO. He's been a game changer for us in the business, to have somebody that's CFO for multiple businesses and just sees things in a different way, looks at numbers differently than when you're sitting in the business and dealing with it day to day. So that is one resource that we've used that's external, and I will not go back. It's become such an integral part of how we plan and the goals that we have for ourselves.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, look, I think for, again, back to those points, you might have found that certain areas, and particularly cash flow, having somebody like that as a solid, skilled CFO is probably very, very vital, particularly if maybe your skill set in that area either isn't so strong. So I think that sort of business planning analysis, which leads you to some of these points, is critical. COVID has highlighted the need for businesses to be agile. I know your business model, obviously, quite well in terms of the different revenue streams, but what sort of strategies have you had to take or to adjust because of, COVID?
So prior to the pandemic, we were delivering fruit primarily to offices across the UAE. We lost 60% of our business in a 10-day period. Every email was put my subscription on pause, cancel my subscription. I'm not sure when I'll be back. So we had to think quick and looked at the fact that we have a kitchen, we have drivers, people aren't in the office eating fruit, but they're now going to be at home eating fruits and vegetables. And actually health is more important than it's ever been. And people aren't able to leave their homes in the same way. So we had to rethink the business, and we moved heavily into home delivery and in particular gifting. So we actually managed to grow during the pandemic. And now that some of our corporates are coming back, we're in a stronger place because we're more diversified.
Look, and that's I think that's a success story just in itself, to be able to grow during that period, even though in essence, you sort of 10 days, you've lost 60% of your revenue, right? So I think that's a great story. And obviously, that digital aspect that you would have had early in your model has helped you, throughout that period. I think just lastly, how much of your marketing spend now is digital versus traditional print publication? You've mentioned you're a very, digital business. And the second one is, how do you stand out from the clutter? I know I sort of asked this question beforehand, but I'm interested to know, given your business is very digital.
Yeah, and there was a poll question about how much we spend on marketing. So I'll tell you what the percentage is for us. It's 8.5% of the revenue that we generate. So as the business grows, we can spend more on marketing. But that's a healthy percentage for us. And for what we do is rather say, how do we make the money more productive? How do we use the same amount of money but get more return on asset on spend? And on the question on whether we've done traditional marketing versus digital marketing, since day one, we've been completely digitally focused. So that definitely helped us going into pandemic. But for us, how do we stand out for the clutter? For me, the answer is very, very clear. It's spending a lot of time and attention on creative. I started Fruitful Day because I'm all about happiness myself. You can see the paintings behind me. We're just a happy, healthy brand, right? And so you need people to see that on their phones, and that's only going to come through quality of pictures and quality of videos and the way that you present things. So we put a lot of attention into that, and then we use external resources to help us place ads to make them more productive, because they'll probably understand Facebook Manager better or whatever platform. Somebody may be on Google Ads, etc. But creativity is king for us.
Look, so Christian, I'll get you to come back for the Q&A. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. Some insightful pieces there. I'll get you to go on mute, and I'll introduce our last speaker, David Jeggerson. He's the head of customer experience and platform development at MBF. David, are you there?
I'm here.
Excellent, thank you. Everyone. So you've heard a lot now. A lot of that comes back to the customer experience there with the MC at the end. We've talked about obviously digital innovation. Do you want to just give a 1-minute sort of overview on yourself, and then we can sort of go into these questions briefly for the listeners before we get to the Q&A?
Very quickly, I'm taking care about the customer experience and platform development for National Bank of Fujairah. And I am one of the contributors of the digital platform that we launched last year for the SME called mbfconnect.ai, in which, and I was very pleased to hear in this kind of sessions, a lot of, let me say, keywords that I picked from the speech was like WhatsApp group, support, vendor and clients relations, cross collaboration, protection, answer to the question, and all of them, I think, again, for me, is like a representation of one word, is community. That was the idea at the beginning that we had when we launched, we built together with the SME, the SME platform at the beginning. We really strong believe that the kind of the business also for the bank is changing. Everyone is talking about platform, participate to platform, what kind of value we can extract from the platform. And we said, okay, let's not, when we thought about the platform, let's not create something like pick something from the market and painting and launch it, but let's ask to our community, to the community of the SME, what they would like to have, what they would like to build, if they are thinking to their own platform, how they would build this kind of new platform. And what we did from last year, also together with the eتصالات, because they participated some kind of specific part of the journey, because this is a journey and is still on. We involve them, we involve the community, and they build their own platform with their feature. And what we found, that despite COVID, actually maybe COVID accelerated a bit this kind of situation, is the reactiveness and the openness to from the SME giving for the change, and try to readapt, try to stay aligned with the market, and yes, taking some risks in this kind of journey, and participate with everyone, asking and answering to question, making poll, testing our feature. Gavin, in the first part of the project, I recall that they were the role of the client, part of the customer in the agile approach in which we are building the project, and they tested also the feature. They raised, they give us some kind of ideas on which kind of new feature we could add to the platform. So we come up with quickly with this kind of platform with an entire forum in which they can exchange ideas between them. They can found new knowledge about kind of knowledge base, because what we also have the opportunity to found with them, also with eتصالات, we ask them which are the questions that they have in each single stage of their life cycle. For example, at the beginning, when you have to launch a new business, which are the specific questions that you have? And they come up with simple questions like, okay, where I can get the funding? One. Second, where I can get the marketing side? How do I register my business? I recall it very well. There was a tick box. They said they has also how do I set my e-commerce operations? Payments, marketing. How I can be present in the digital space? Can I speak with other entrepreneurs? So this kind of subset just for the launching. And then we are, when they are coming in business usual, people, the SME are starting to ask, okay, how do I recruit and retain talent? How do I manage bookkeeping? How do I manage legal and regulatory requirements? And then we come up also with a kind of knowledge base section in the platform and so on. So that's what this kind of interaction that we have.
I think you know, that sort of actually covers off, to be honest, two of the points in the questions we were going to ask you, which is, and you've emphasised it very well there. I think what that is a lot to do with you know, cross collaboration. You know, trying to listen to the you know, the community there and then build in, you know, what they're looking for, and that's probably very similar for all of the other, you know, speakers on there today. Is one of the takeaway points there that COVID has highlighted is that need to really understand that customer journey and that customer experience. What if I ask you one of the questions here, and I'm just conscious of time because I know we've got to go to some of the questions, but what do you think is the biggest challenge holding SMEs back from keeping up with today's fast-paced environment?
The digital aspect. The opportunity to have access to easy tools, digital tools, to let them to be present in the digital space easily, to come up with their own kind of mobile or web kind of marketplace, to give visibility of their product or services, plus collecting some services for collecting payments, and all of this, do it with kind of cross collaboration with the Eتصالات, because when we had in mind this kind of collaboration, we always been convinced that in the future there will not be the business like a monolith platform in which everyone can find everything in that platform, but it will be a kind of cross collaboration between platforms, and that's how it's working with the Eتصالات. The people from customer from Tesla will find some kind of bank services from us in their platform and vice versa. So that is the new kind of way in which in the digital space SME can pick their services and try with the business.
I was going to say that emphasizes, I guess, SM's perspective around cloud, making it sort of cost effective, obviously digital, you know, but in a range of fields and sectors, as opposed to, you know, one or two, you know, and therefore the startups and SMEs have got scope to work with. David, thanks very much for your input. We're going to go to the questions just because I'm conscious of time, and I'm just going to summarize. So if I can have all the speakers back on, I'll come to the questions. But just before I do that, oops, one extra page. Just to give a bit of a conclusion. So obviously we talk business planning. One of the things there is, you know, business planning. While I've put quarterly because it used to be yearly, I think if anything, it's monthly, weekly, daily. And everything in between. And I'm sure all of the listeners are probably nodding as well as the participants. We talked there about evaluating your digital marketing spend. You know, you don't want to be spending digital marketing in the wrong areas. So you need to make sure you're getting a good ROI. But I think both to Karen and MC's points, it needs to be quality, specific, targeted. We talked there about seeking external support, particularly on riskier decisions. I think everybody's needed that community and collaboration during the last 18 months. And I think if anything, that should only enhance going forward. And David's point, and obviously SM's, is how do you do that then for an SME? Well, you do that with community engagement. You do that with community collaboration across lots and lots of platforms. And that means that you need to be able to do that in a digital way so you get that scope and that growth. And then finally, obviously, I haven't put it on there, but it was raised a lot, cash flow. Obviously, cash flow is king, the tool that they always say. So I think, you know, if there's one takeaway point from that for everybody that's an SME or a startup, you want to be very, very crystal clear on that and know where they are. So we're just going to go to the questions, because I'm just conscious of time. And I'm just going to pick a couple. So we got a question here. What digital marketing strategy works best in this situation? If we were to pick one digital marketing strategy, and I know we talked about various ones, but is there one really that stands out from any? I don't know whether maybe MC, I ask you first and then see if anybody else has got anything to add.
Sure, I'm happy to jump in on that. Look, everybody's business is different, so I don't think it's about us as the business. It's about who we want our customers to be and understanding where they're consuming their information, the things that they're excited about that would get them interested. So meet your customers where they are. For us, we're a fruit business. It's highly visual. It's Instagram. We have over 84,000 followers on Instagram, and that's the way we connect. But it makes sense for Fruitful Day. It's not necessarily going to make sense for the next business. So you need to understand your customer first, and then decide your strategy accordingly, in my opinion.
Any other comments from any other speakers for the listeners?
Happy to make a comment there. I want to echo a little bit of what MC says. I mean, content is king for sure. And like she said, businesses they have different needs depending on what they are. There are huge companies across the world that don't really have a big social presence. Doesn't mean that they're not making any money, you know? Again, when it comes to investing in social media or digital marketing, I think the first thing you should do is educate yourself on it. You know, thankfully, we're living in a day and age where you can actually learn most of your stuff on YouTube or similar, Google. Get a grip on what is going and then find an expert. I think it's so important in the beginning to consult people, especially when you're looking at sales funnels and things that are totally new for you. Just because someone's saying that they're a media planner doesn't mean you're going to get a great ROI. So you need to educate yourself a little bit on that first, ask in your network, go on referrals, people that have had good results before. And then also, like she said, connect with your clients. In the end,
yes,
digital age or not, it's the same as here. It's connecting with people. It's communicating with people. You're selling to a person. And you need to consider
correct.
that even if you're on the internet.
Thank you very much. I think that again very much highlights that it's customer understanding, customer engagement before, and then you work backwards. A question, Essam, here. The Hello Business Hub, is it for SMEs in the UAE or specific to an emirate or an industry?
No, the Hello Business Hub is covering the whole UAE, irrespective of whether you are based in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, or any of the other emirates. In fact, what we have now is a physical location. However, the physical location is only available in 1GLT and Dubai, but it can cater all the needs of all the customers, whether it's a new customer or a startup across the countries. Soon, we are also moving digitally, hopefully within almost a couple of months, that we will be able to onboard our platforms rather than having physical location only into the digital. So to answer the question, it's covering the whole Emirates, irrespective whether it's a free zone or even a mainland. So hopefully this will answer.
Very good.
If you allow me to add, we are also attacking the global market. So we are also going digitally to attract the global companies. So we're doing mass campaigns on our websites to encourage the global markets also to participate in the UAE and also to open the UAE. And we're also showcasing our solutions, how we can make it easy for them to start the businesses.
Very good. Well, look, we're pretty much out of time now. So I just want to say a big thank you, obviously, first of all, to our speakers. Thank you very much for participating and obviously giving your insight. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure that if anybody has any comments, by all means, they can send it to us and we're more than happy to pass them on. Obviously, I want to, for both the business owners, MC and Karen, obviously, thanks very much for the in-depth and honest insight as well, particularly as an SME and the challenges you've been through. You know, I know it's been very, very difficult across all SMEs from startups right the way through. I want to say, obviously, thank you to Essam for your input on Etisalat, obviously Hello Hub and the Digital Academy. If anybody's interested, please let us know. And thank you to David and Rehan for obviously giving their exposure and understanding in relation to MBF and what we've been doing digitally. To the listeners, thank you very much. This is, you know, what makes the webinar work when we have the listeners. You would have seen a question and poll in relation to what some of the other webinars that might be coming up. So hopefully you manage to fill those in so we can cater that to you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and obviously stay safe.